Hi everyone, this is Mark, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. And in this episode, I'm once again continuing my journey through poetry, a journey which I am undertaking, in which I am going back through my poetry collections and reading the first poem of all of my poetry collections, and then of course I'll continue to the second, the third, the fourth, so this is episode 3 in this new series. So this is going to be the first poem from my third poetry collection, which was entitled The Eternal Boy, which was originally published back in 2015 and then subsequently republished last year, back in 2024. And so the cover of The Eternal Boy features a picture of me, a photograph of me that was taken outside the Sherlock Holmes Museum in London. And I'm standing outside the door of 221B Baker Street, which, if you're a fan of Sherlock Holmes, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's famous detective character, he's a favourite of mine. I've always loved Sherlock Holmes, and when I didn't anticipate that a photo of me standing outside 221B Baker Street would go on to become the image and of the front cover of my book, The Eternal Boy. But it just happened like that. When I was looking for an image to personify, or to capture the feeling of the poems within The Eternal Boy, I just came across a photograph that had been taken of me by a tourist, another visitor to the Sherlock Holmes Museum in London at the same time as me, back in 2014, I guess it was. And I thought, that's perfect, the title of my poetry collection, The Eternal Boy, is basically encapsulates me at that time in my life, as this optimist, this hopeful, joyous, energetic young man, who was so inspired and so full of energy, and so, I felt like I could do anything, I could go anywhere. I was so happy. It was a very happy time in my life, very inspiring time in my life. Again, The Eternal Boy is a collection of poetry of me, from a time in my life, that is kind of like a time capsule of me at that time. And as I journey through all of the poems of my poetry collections, I hope that you will see an evolution, a difference, a change in me, and also what I chose to write about at that time. Because as I've said in previous episodes of the podcast, I'm definitely different in many ways. I'm definitely different as a writer, an author, and a poet. I definitely don't write as much now as I did back then, but that's not a bad thing. But at the time when I wrote the poems within The Eternal Boy, as I say, it was a very different time for me in many different ways. But without further ado, I'm going to read to you the first poem of The Eternal Boy, which is, let's turn to the first page, go past the dedication, go past the page which I featured, which features several quotes from author J.M. Barrie, who, as you may know, was the author of Peter Pan. And I'm a fan of J.M. Barrie. I'm a fan of the character of Peter Pan. And the title of that is The Eternal Boy is basically it encapsulates who Peter Pan is, I suppose. You know, the eternal boy who never grew up. And I suppose at the time when I wrote this poetry collection, I felt like that, a bit like Peter Pan. But yeah, so the first poem of The Eternal Boy is my poem, Immortalize. And I'm going to read it to you now. And I hope you like what you hear. A song sung for someone. A poem written for and because of someone who inspires you. A picture created so that someone's light can be shone. A photo in your mind, or a memory that you can hold in your hand that immortalizes a person, a time, a moment, and a forever place of heaven on earth that will always be a part of you. As raindrops fall on the sand, as the sea swells and the waves rise, as the wind blows and you fully extend the fingers of your hands, as the seagulls squawk and fly, as the memories flood back, all around me becomes an ocean that I am happily and contently under the surface of, that is an energy and a light that no matter how far I go or how deep I descend will never go out and go to black. Names ingrained in oak trees. Words like I love you engraved in gold and worn close to someone's heart. Song lyrics and meaning left for someone to find and reread and listen to again. A beautiful verse of immortalized poetry, an embodiment of quintessential perfection, like a unique birthmark. Like a message written in wet concrete, like the layers of life that build up over time. Like a person that instantly touches your soul from the moment that we meet. Like the steps that you take as you climb. Every touch, every word, every footprint, every indentation is a piece of natural sculpture, and like nothing else that has come before or could ever come after. Like the colour and shine of someone's eyes. Things of importance endure. People live forever. Every heartbeat leaves an echo and a wave. Everyone returns. No one truly dies once they have been immortalized. And yeah, as I say, that poem was me at a time when you know, it was a different time. It was a time before I lost my dad back in 2022. It was a time before I'd had my heart broken a couple of times, and it was a time when I was, as I say, I was writing all the time. I was writing multiple poems a day. I was hopeful. I was optimistic. As I say, it was a different time, and you know, it was only I wrote that poem back in 2014. I would imagine it was, And as I say, that was 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. And I couldn't write that poem now, I don't think. I don't think if I did write that poem, and I probably have written that poem since, but I would write it differently. There are certain things within it, certain phrases that I used that I wouldn't be able to use now. And I say I wouldn't be able to use them because for me, you know, everybody's dialogue, every word that people use, the way that they use language, it does change over time. You may think that it doesn't, and you may think that you stay the same. That, you know, people may say to you, "Oh, you've changed. You may think, "No, I haven't. No, I haven't. I'm still the same person," and that is both true and false, because everybody, yes, is the same. They have the same name. They may feel the same way for certain things, for certain people, but we all change, and especially over a 10-year period. And that's why I say that if I was to write that poem now, I wouldn't write it as I did back then, because when I wrote that poem, and I liked that poem, but and I know and I recognise that I wrote that poem, but that poem was written by a different version of me, you could say, and it would be hard for me to write that now, in the way that I wrote it. And I suppose that, as I say, it's a hallmark of how I've changed as a writer. I'm more I don't know, more experienced, I guess. I've written hundreds of poems by now. And by the time that I wrote Immortalize, I'd probably written a couple of hundred poems, maybe, or something like that. But yeah, as I say, it was a different time. And as I go on and I reread the poems, some of these poems that I haven't read for a couple of years now, maybe. Especially in the case of my first poetry collection and my second poetry collection and my third poetry collection. It's been a while since I've reread them, and even in the intervening time since I read them, things have happened. I have changed. Things have changed. The world has changed, and I'm certain that my perspective on some of my poems that I've written and that I will go on to reread as I continue my journey through poetry, will bring up memories and reflections of mine back from time gone by. Even poems that I wrote last year and had published in my most recent poetry collection, I perhaps would feel somewhat of a familiarization with, but also a distance from, because it's like footprints that we leave, as I said in the poem, that, you know, you're writing a name in concrete, or, you know, leaving an etching in an oak tree, names in an oak tree, and, you know, whenever you see that, you wonder, is that person still there? Is that sentiment still shared? Is that still true? Because you know, things change, people change, and that's the way life's supposed to be, isn't it? Life, the universe, everything is supposed to evolve and change over time. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there for now. Just want to say thank you for listening. I hope you like what you heard. And the next stop on my journey through poetry will be my book, The Dreamer and the Dream, and once again, I have no idea what the first poem of that collection was, but you and I will both find out when I read the first poem from my 4th poetry collection, The Dream of the Dream, on the next episode. But until then, this was Mark, and I just want to say thank you for listening. I hope you like what you heard, and I'll talk to you again soon.